Our grand final looks like it's not going to be at Old Trafford because, well, A, there's not going to be anyone in, so it's pointless paying to hire out Old Trafford. And B,
Bell-
Man United have got to play some games or something.
Let's have it at Bellevue. No,
Yeah, could do.
as long as it's not at Hull. I mean, no one wants to go to Hull. So either Huddersfield or Leeds. And let's be honest, Huddersfield or Leeds won't be in the grand final this year. Sorry, Phil. But yeah, I think Huddersfield or Leeds would make sense.
I think if it's Saints Warrington, you'd struggle to bring it over to Yorkshire, but it makes perfect sense not to have it at Old Trafford. I think that the difference at Wembley is clearly you're on terrestrial television, that there is all of the associated history surrounding that. If the grand final on Sky is going to get the same 200,000 people that view it that will tune in every year. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference in terms of added value, if you like, where you play it. In which case, take as much expense out of it as you can. Play it at a ground that you know. I mean, the reason it Headingley would make sense, or St Helens, or possibly Warrington, is that those grounds are available. And one of the issues with Old Trafford is clearly Manchester United might not make it available because they've got quite a lot of games to fit in, or you're going to have the same issue at Huddersfield. I know they're not in the same division or in Europe, but clearly you don't have priority over that stadium because there's a football team playing there. So I would say, that the likelihood is, looking at the fixtures that you've got to cram in between now and the end of the season, that Leeds aren't going to be in it. The best I think they could hope for would be to be fourth. But I suspect that quite a lot of teams got 4 games in 10 days coming up, and that is going to be so difficult to manage. And when it's done on win percentage ratios, it's almost impossible to not only predict but to actually change too much of where the table is at the moment. So I suspect an outset at Headingley, it's as secure as environment as you could imagine. It's got all the media access that you need. It's relatively easy to get to. The only thing you would say was if it was Saints and Warrington or Wigan, would they want to come over here? But you might, you might end up then playing at somebody's home ground, which again, you don't want a grand final to be decided on a home ground.
It's a bit like the darts. I know people love it when I compare everything to darts. They've had the World Grand Prix and the World Match Play have been on recently, and they were held, I think, in Milton Keynes in front of a big screen and no one there, and the Premier League darts finals as well. But the World Championships, it looked like they're going to be at Alexandra Palace when there's however many people are allowed in or not, just because it's the World Championships and it has to be in that prestigious venue like Wembley for the Challenge Cup final. I'm not saying the grand final isn't prestigious, but in terms of saving money and everything in this strangest of years, blah blah blah, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to be champions, just going to be champions not quite at Old Trafford. If you haven't got Old Trafford, you can go do the tour at another point in the future. It'll be open for business. It'll be all right. You might get there for the World Cup final next year. Fingers crossed as we count down to that tournament. I'm trying to think of any other news that's gone on this week. I know we haven't spoken about the games in Super League, but the ones that happened last week seem to have been a long time ago now. I guess we should touch on Hull versus Castleford. Andy Lass picking up his first win in charge of Hull in Hull. He's been in charge for years now, but it's his first game of the KCOM. And they absolutely battered Castleford on Sunday, John. 24-0 at half-time, 48-6 by full-time. A very good performance from Hull, I assume.
It was, but I think that Castleford performance is the worst performance I've seen from any team for a while. Basically, Castleford kicked off, Hull had a set, they kicked the ball, kicked it to Gareth O'Brien. He picked up the ball with one hand, he went in, go into contact, but dropped the ball before the tackle. And then Hull scored off that set. And then basically Castleford didn't have the ball for the first 10 minutes. And some of their defensive efforts were woeful. Hull looked slick at times, but they weren't playing against a particularly good team, and it's Castleford's 5th loss in a row, so there's a lot of pressure and heat on Daryl Powell, which I can understand. But I think what he's done at the club since he came in from Featherstone 7 years ago, he definitely deserves some time and a bit of respect. Because obviously, while this season, I think as Phil said, this season is a very unusual season, and I think any push to get him sacked or removed is a bit far-fetched.
What we shouldn't forget either is it's only just over a week and a half ago that Castleford didn't have enough players to raise a team. So, clearly there's very little training going on. There's very little combinations there. Jake Truman's been out for a while, comes back in the team, but clearly it doesn't yet look comfortable in that he can't possibly be fit in the conventional sense of the word. My bigger worry for Castleford would be Danny Orr leaving. I think that the golden triumvirate of coaching was having those 3 half-backs together, Ryan Sheridan, Danny Orr and Daryl Powell, and that meant that they played a certain way, and the philosophy was, attack. Clearly you can't do that unless you've got a really good defence, but they were so inventive with those 3 at the helm, and one of those 3 leaves. You just think, I wonder if that's a signal of something, not being quite right. Clearly everybody's looking at Costa at the moment, and it may well be that Danny is ready to be a head coach somewhere, and good luck to him if he is. He's, again, fantastically respected in the game, and he will be looking for an opportunity at some point. But just wonder whether that signals a slight changing of the guard at Castleford. And we can't, Hull started the season round 1 with a victory where everybody said, oh, they're going to win the competition. And then the rules changed and COVID came in, and then they came out and went, oh, Hull are rubbish, so they're not going to win anything. And they have one good win against a team that had an off day, and suddenly now they're going to be a late charge for the top 4. We've said it a number of times while we've been doing these podcasts. There is no form line. What goes in one week will not be replicated the next week. We haven't yet, as we're recording, heard what the latest COVID situation is. We don't know suddenly if some team hasn't trained all week. We don't know if 3 players are going to have to stand down because they've tested positive, or another 8 will because they've been in contact with somebody. And all of that means you cannot prepare. You can't really be consistent. And we've now got a ridiculous schedule of games coming up for a lot of teams, and they're going to have to make some decisions as to when they play their kids, and which games they decide to play their kids may even determine the results of those games. So, doing predictions at the moment is without access to literally knowing an hour before what the teams are, is a complete waste of time.
It is. That's why I can't be bothered doing them.
But seriously, I mean, when you look at what Castleford have got to do, what Hull KR, what Leeds have got to do, what Wakefield have got to do, how can you possibly predict? I couldn't tell you now whether Leeds going to St Helens on Friday are going to say, I'll tell you what, we'll reward all of the top line players. It's a team that's already in the top 4. Not only do we need the points percentage, but we need to take something off them as well. We're really going to go for this. Or whether they say, well, we've got Castleford on Monday, who are struggling a little bit. We've got Wakefield twice in 3 days at the end of that week. We'd hope to win maybe 1, possibly 2. We'll go for we'll win 3 out of 4. So we'll play all the kids at say. So, how can you predict what the results are going to be if you don't know how that's going to work out? So whoever gets in the top 4 will have deserved it. Whoever doesn't, thank you for keeping the season going. Take the heat off any coach. Wakefield have a decent display. Chris Chester's fine. Wakefield have a poor display. Chris Chester needs to go. Just forget it. This year, just forget it. Cut everyone the slack that they need and deserve, and hopefully we'll all emerge and every team will be fine for next year in a 12-team competition, whoever that 12th team may be.